kelas ya?
Bukan, justru ada kegiatan di Papua, mulai presentasinya jam 8 pagi.
Oh iya kan ngikut sana. Nah ini Pak, link YouTube-nya saya kirimkan di sini.
Oke, saya kelihatan.
Ya, Pak.
Yes, ntar saya share ke teman saya nih. Oke, thank you, Pak.
Kayaknya ini agak berubah deh Pak. Tadi koneksinya kurang begitu kuat. Sebentar Pak. Nah baru dan direct.
Itu semuanya dilakukan via Zoom ya, Pak?
Iya benar.
Live ke YouTube.
Iya via Zoom Pak.
Oh, wow. Canggih.
Sama kok Pak, nggak berubah ternyata. Tadi terdisconnect saja, tapi linknya tetap sama. Bisa dilihat bisa di post juga ternyata di sini di YouTube-nya.
Oke, ini saya lagi buka.
Nanti langsung ada picture-nya Pak Yoga di situ.
Wah, iya. Ngeri.
Di YouTube ya.
Oke.
Ini perkenalkan ada Mbak Nada, ada Mbak Karima, ada Mbak Puput. Ini belum pada dibuka ininya.
Selamat pagi, Mbak-mbak. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam, selamat pagi Pak Yoga.
Ini Mbak Nada, kayaknya saya pernah ketemu.
Waktu sama Pak Is ya?
Sama Pak Kaswanto ya, kalau nggak salah. Beda ya?
Mbak Nada pernah ketemu nggak tuh? Mbak Kiki udah diinfoin?
Udah Pak, sebentar saya hubungin kembali. Tadi pagi juga sudah menghubungi Pak.
Pak Daso, saya izin ngetes PowerPoint ya?
Iya, silakan. Mbak Puput saya kembalikan host-nya ya? Tapi nggak bisa. Oh bisa kayaknya. Ininya tetap jalan kok. Belum muncul Pak tadi?
Belum ya?
Belum.
Ya, ini saya ada 2 PowerPoint. Oh, sorry. Mesti saya. Kalau ini udah kayaknya Pak ya, udah kelihatan.
Sudah, sekarang sudah.
Sudah skip dulu.
Hostnya udah dikembalikan, Mbak Puput.
Ah, baik, Pak.
Morning, Ken.
Good morning.
Good
night.
morning. Good morning, everyone. Selamat pagi.
Pagi.
So we have Professor Iskandar and Pak Dase, Dr. Dase from the IPB International Cooperation Office, and with the other colleagues from IPB.
Excellent. Thank you all very much for joining this morning.
Thank you for your time. My name is Dase Hunaefi, and very pleased to meet you.
Yeah, very pleased to meet you as well, Pak Daze. Does my audio sound okay? Am I giving an echo or anything like that?
Yes, it is very clear here.
Oh, good.
A little bit echo on my side.
A little echo? Okay. I'll adjust some things.
Hey, Ken, is that Forest Service green?
I'm sorry?
Are you using a Forest Service green, your suit?
Yeah, this is I get the full
Wow, okay.
out here.
This is
Yeah,
the first time
badge.
I see a uniform with tie.
I'm sorry?
This my first time seeing the uniform with tie, the Forest Service uniform with tie.
Yeah, I lost the original tie, but I just found this green tie. This is not, I don't think, official standard issue, but everything else is.
Selamat pagi, Profesor Iskandar.
Good morning. Selamat pagi, Pak
Morning.
Dr.
Morning,
Ulfa,
everyone.
Pak Elliot. Selamat pagi. Good morning.
Selamat pagi.
Yeah. So we are wearing batik here every day.
Batik, it's a great
Yeah.
choice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Always right for batik. I was actually looking for my batik because I have batik from previous visits in Indonesia, but I just moved houses and I could not find. I think still in a suitcase.
And I think you met Professor Iskandar several years ago.
I think so, Professor Iskandar, perhaps through the collaboration with CIFI and with the Indonesia Climate Change Center, where I previously worked with Pak Yoga.
Okay. Yeah. So you work with the Pak Rwanda, Dr. Rwanda, or in the Ministry of Forestry? Ministry of Forestry as well, yeah.
Yes, sir. We worked with Pak Rwanda during that time, and now once more.
So I visited your office in DC 2018, I think, in around August. Very short visit when there was training.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was brought by Dr. Megan Horny, from WRI DC.
Oh, okay.
So on timber legality initiative. So
the Forest Legality Initiative. I see.
Forest Legality Initiative, yes. And here our moderator today is Dr. Ulfa. Dr. Ulfa did some years postdoc at, I think, at Mississippi, Bu Ulfa,
Mississippi State.
Long time
MSU.
ago.
Long time ago. Very long time ago.
Oh, that's great. At Mississippi State University in Starkville?
Yes.
Starkville.
Yeah. What is your discipline, Dr. Ulfa?
I was at the time. I was at the Department of Biochemistry and Molecular Biology. So we are working with on resistance of corn to fall armyworm. Try to find At the time, we just start with protein. So one of my friend in the same lab found protein, which is supposed to be which is actually cysteine proteinase, and then we try to find the gene or something like that. So we go back. we did backward genetics, they call it, something like that. Backward genetics.
I see.
Yeah, from protein
Wow.
identifying the genes.
Oh, it sounds very, very sophisticated. And this was for fall armyworm?
Yeah, fall armyworm. Fall armyworm.
Right.
Yeah, the corn.
Against corn, yeah. Is that still a major problem? I have not heard about fall armyworm recently. Is that still a major?
Maybe, I don't know. I left in 1992, so I don't know. I left in 1995, sorry, 1995. So I don't know. Maybe now it's not the problem anymore in USDA. I don't know. But at that time, it was problem at that time.
It was a problem at that time. And the southeastern United States, I know. And I think recently there's been problems in the Pacific Islands with fall armyworm.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is it corn also?
On corn and other crops that they've had. Some challenges. In Micronesia, I know we had some interest about fall armyworm.
My work really have a huge impact on me. So now I'm also working on the resistance from insect and disease and forestry species. So that work really have a great impact on me, that postdoc work. Yeah.
Well, that's wonderful to hear. I know it's a great, great university, especially on agriculture, forestry. Veterinary
medicine. I heard that Mississippi State University is #1 in the veterinary medicine school.
That's right. Yeah, we have. We understand there's a very prominent veterinary medicine school.
Yeah, and I had several chance to visit the United States after that. Usually, I attended the IUFRO. Are you familiar with that? IUFRO World Congress. I think in
Salt Lake City.
Yeah, in Salt Lake City. Yeah, I went there. And after that, we had a project with funded by USAID, USAID SHARA. But it was cut by Trump in the middle. So it doesn't. We haven't finished. I mean, we have several goals, but then it was cut in the middle, so we haven't have a time to finish it all or something. But yeah, we produce, I think, a lot of publication from that project. Yeah. And I went to Colorado State because our partner at the time in the project funded by USAID SHARA, our partner is Colorado State at Boulder. Yeah, Colorado State University at Boulder. So I went there. But actually, I went around. I went to San Diego attending some plant and animal genomic conference, and then I attended in some San Francisco, so some JGI meeting, something like that. So it was good experience for me.
Excellent. I'm so glad to hear that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. When we went to Colorado, I had a chance to visit USDA Forest Service there, and they work with the community forest plantation or something like that, and they produce biomass-based energy for what do you call it? Warm energy as a what do you call it? Heating power in for that community, something like that. It was sustainable. So I visited them there. So USDA Forest Service try to, how to say, maintain or the community asked the USDA Forest Service to take care of their forest, for example, thinning and then planting and something like that. And in return, the USDA got the what do you call the waste, or not only the waste, but from the process, they try to generate bioenergy for heating, for home heating, for the city. So that city, I think it was Boulder. I forgot. It was a few years ago. Yeah, something like that. That was very good. Yeah, I mean, I was when I think of United States, I was always thinking that you will have a very high tech or whatever, very advanced in the system or something like that. And I was so surprised because there I witnessed very simple technology. I mean, just really from wood, they cut it into chip and dust and then produce bioenergy for heating. I mean, community home heating or something like that. Very simple technology. I mean, but it works. It's sustainable. So I was surprised. I thought so maybe such thing can be duplicated in Indonesia or something like that. I was surprised. Yeah. For another friend of mine, they visited many centers in other cities and around US, and they visited very high tech, for example, atomic or whatever for alternative energy source or something like that. But I just interested in forestry-based energy or something like that. So that's my recent experience with US before COVID. After COVID, yeah, I cannot go anywhere. Just in Bogor.
Oh, it sounds like you had a chance to see many different things, and yeah, it's a very true observation.
Yeah.
Different levels of technology, different needs for differing methods and alternative energy that runs from hydrogen, fuel cells to the biomass projects that you were seeing. So
yeah.
a big range.
Yeah, when I was in Salt Lake, yeah, that was when NIU Pro. Yeah, I visited also how you at that time all buildings are using solar panel, yeah? PV, yeah, PV. All buildings using that. So at that time I was, yeah, okay, that's maybe suitable for situation in the middle of desert, almost desert there. But when I was in Colorado, I was surprised. Oh, they are using forest-based biomass, so something like that for our energy. And I see the, what do you call it? It was gasification, and the plant for gasification, they have maybe 2 or 3 gasifications. So they are interns because they need to clean the plant periodically, because there is some, what do you call it, tar in when you burn the biomass or something like that. So they clean that one. So it's quite simple technology, yeah, in Colorado. But of course, in other places, no, you have many kind of technology, of course, yeah. Okay. I don't know. So now it's already 8:05. I guess we are waiting for Pak Dodi Ridho Nur Rahmat.
Yeah, Pak Dodi has already arrived.
Oh ya, ya sudah ya Pak Dasi ya. Ya.
Sudah.
Enggak, Pak Dasi dimulai aja mungkin.
Please, Mbak Kiki.
Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning.
Morning.
Mbak Kiki.
Yes, Pak.
Okay.
Should I
Already.
just start? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Good morning and probably good evening in the US time. Welcome to all distinguished attendees to the MOU signing ceremony between IPB University and the United States Forest Service, USFS. On behalf of the committee, I'd like to convey our warmest welcome to all the distinguished attendees. First and foremost, let me introduce myself. My name is Rizky Auliarisha Alifa from IPB University, and it is such a delightful chance for me to be the MC for such a monumental event. Before we start the general discussion, I'd like to convey our warmest welcome to the Vice Rector for International Affairs, Collaboration and Alumni Relation of IPB University, Professor Dodik Ridwanur Rahmat, Director for International Program of IPB University, Professor Iskandar Siregar, and also for the Director for USFS Asian Region, Mr. Kent Elliott. Welcome to today's event. And other distinguished guests that I cannot mention one by one. Without further ado, I would like to invite Professor Dodik Ridwanur Rahmat, the Vice Rector for International Affairs, Collaboration and Alumni Relations of IPB University to deliver the opening speech, and followed by the Director Program of USFS for Asian Region, Mr. Kent Elliott. Professor Dodik, the platform is yours.
Thank you, Mbak Kiki. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning from Bogor, Indonesia, and good evening to our colleagues in US. First of all, I would like to extend my warmest welcome to the Honorable Director of International Program, US Forest Service, Mr. Fadis Mezainis PhD, the Honorable Program Manager for Indonesia and Central Asia of USFS, Ms. Stephanie Mann, and the Honorable former Associate Chief of USFS, Mr. Hang Kasdan, and all the distinguished participants. Please allow me to extend my sincere gratitude and warm greetings from Indonesia to all of you. I am very pleased to be here today for the signing of Memorandum of Understanding between IPB University and the United States Forest Service, as well as the 77th IPB Talk on Complexity and Sustainability Sciences. As the representatives of IPB University, I would like to introduce Prof. Iskandar Zulkarnain Siregar as the Director of International Program. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to all participants for participating in this event. Even though we cannot meet in person due to the pandemic, it is my pleasure to have this virtual MOU ceremony and seminar. I do hope you all in good health. Ladies and gentlemen, we are pleased to report that IPB University have been actively conducting remarkable scientific research in agriculture and biosciences. To expand our local, regional, and global impacts, IPB University is actively developing collaboration among international university and institutions such as USFS. After signing this MOU, we do hope to continue establishing cooperation within the framework of the academics, scientific, and development collaboration to address the complex issue of sustainable forest management. By establishing a strong and effective collaboration, I do hope we can achieve our common goal of strengthening education and development program, but not limited to climate change, human-wildlife interface, zoonotic disease, urban forest management, wood identification, and law enforcement, and also for forest landscape restoration. And it is very important. The essentials of the follow-up of MOU is the collaboration, the agreement for collaboration, such as young researchers exchange, for example, and internship, for example, for the students from IPB University to USFS to know better the management of the US forest management, and also vice versa, perhaps the young researchers from USFS come to Indonesia to learn more about tropical forest management. And that's very important for us to follow up the MOU, because memorandum MOU without follow-up is not memorandum of understanding, but memorandum of uncertainty, perhaps. So we do hope that we soon, follow up this MOU with the real activities. Finally, I look forward to the successful implementation of our MOU, and wish you all good health, happiness, and success. On behalf of IPB University, I sincerely hope for an engaging signing ceremony and webinar. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Professor Dodik, for the warm welcome. Now, please welcome Mr. Kent Elliott, the Director Program of USFS for Asian Region. Mr. Elliott, please, the platform is yours.
Thank you very much, Ibu Rizky. And first, I'd like to start just by thanking Dr. Dodik, Dr. Iskandar, Dr. Dase, Dr. Ulfa, and Dr. Kaswanto, and all esteemed participants of this ceremony, and to the entire community of the Institute Pertanian Bogor, IPB University, for facilitating this, this session. I forgot to ask, are we translating these discussions, and should I pause for translation?
Not necessarily. I think
Okay,
we just assume that everybody knows who attended this this seminar should somehow understand English well. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, sometimes I don't know what I'm saying, so hopefully you'll have a better understanding than I do myself. But no, I do want to express on behalf of our Chief of the U.S. Forest Service, Randy Muir, and the Director of International Programs, Valdis Mazinas, their appreciation and general acknowledgement of this partnership between U.S. Forest Service and IPB that we are formalizing today through the signing ceremony, but that has been in existence periodically, intermittently, for at least the past 15 years. And I've had the pleasure of being able to observe and to attempt to contribute to that partnership for the last 10 years, during which time, 10 years ago, we were working with IPB University, particularly around peatland research and the importance of peatlands and mangroves, other types of wetland systems for both climate change mitigation and adaptation. And to see that the relationship has evolved from those specific projects to work with graduate students, certain research initiatives, with the faculty at IPB, to encompass so many diverse sectors, to me really connects well with the theme of discussion today around multiple use forestry. Because one of the reasons that a partnership like the one with IPB, between IPB University and the US Forest Service, the reason why that's so important and so valuable is because of the breadth of expertise and resources and ambitions that IPB holds. And I think that's very well signified by the new collaborations around urban forestry. Urban forestry is an area that the U.S. Forest Service feels very passionately about, and it is encompassed within its mission, even though urban forests are happening in landscapes that the agency does not have direct administration over. The agency doesn't have necessarily a regulatory role, a governance role about trees in cities. But what we know is that the majority of the population is living in urban, peri-urban, suburban areas. And so for the stakeholders in the United States that are benefiting from forest, which is in some way or another the entire population of the United States, a topic of like urban forestry is of paramount importance. And so we very much appreciate IPB's recognition of that that theme of this sector that is really emerging as a new interest in academia and in public administration. And I would also say that I'm very heartened to learn about the interest around wood science and particularly wood identification as a means of promoting forest legality practices, forest sustainability, and better improving the global trade platform that will benefit Indonesia, United States, its citizens, and other countries that are producing and consuming forest products. So I'm currently, in addition to my role as the Asia Pacific Assistant Director for the Office of International Programs at the US Forest Service, I also work at the Wood Identification and Screening Center of the US Forest Service that employs the mass spectrometry methods for wood identification that I believe IPB is exploring new efforts towards in its partnership with the World Resources Institute and other organizations. So I just also want to say that we're very much thrilled about those developments and this expressed interest by the IPB community. So with that, I will conclude my remarks just by saying once again that we very much appreciate and hold deep gratitude for the community of administration, faculty, students, and other collaborators at IPB University. And we look forward to a more expansive, deeper engagement going forward. Thank you very much. Terima kasih banyak.
Thank you very much, Mr. Elliot. Terima kasih banyak for the remarks. Now we can move on to the next agenda, which is the highlight of today's event, a signing of the MOU that symbolized the new beginning between two institutions. I'd like to invite the Vice Rector for International Affairs, Collaboration and Alumni Relation of IPB University and the Director Program of United States Forest Service for Asian region to sign the Memorandum of Understanding. Thank you very much. Now that the MOU has been signed, I'd like to invite both Professor Dodik and Mr. Elliot to show the signed MOU to the camera and take a picture together. Okay, maybe the host could help me. 1, 2, 3. And then once more. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you very much, Professor Dodik and Mr. Elliot. Now, I would like to invite all the attendees to open their camera and maybe we could have a picture together. Maybe the host can help me once again. I think there are 3 slides here. Okay, have everyone opened the camera? Okay. Okay, so I will, in the count of 3, 1, 2, 3, and then second slide, 1, 2, 3, and then third slide, 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you very much. Now that we have already in the end of the agenda, I'd like to thank the both parties. It was such an honor for us to witness such a memorable event. Hope this will be a meaningful start for both parties to join forces and collaboration in various fields, in research cooperation, as well as technology and knowledge transfer, and especially in the field of forestry. Now that we are in the end of the signing MOU agenda, we will soon move on to the next agenda, which is the 77th IPB Talk on Complexity and Sustainability Science, Multiple Use of Forests, Nature Living and Harmony. This session will be led directly by our moderator from the Faculty of Forestry, IPB University, Dr. Ulfa Siregar. And lastly, on behalf of the committee, I'd like to apologize for any shortcomings or mistakes along the process of the MOU signing event. Stay healthy and have a good week ahead. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Ms. Rizky. And now I would like to proceed immediately with the IPB talk. And our first speaker is Ms. Stephanie Mann, who is a USFS IP Program Manager for Indonesia, Sri Lanka, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyz Republic, Kazakhstan, and Turkmenistan. Wow, so many countries. You must have traveled all this country, right? Yeah.
No, not at all. I'm very privileged to be able to work in all of them. Not at all in a small part, Indonesia. Thank you so much, Dr. Siregaard, for the introduction. And I just wanted to echo the sentiments of my colleague, Kent Elliott, our Assistant Director for Asia Pacific. I'm so pleased to be here today with you all and so excited about this new collaboration between IPB University and the United States Forest Service. A special thanks to Vice Rector, Professor Dodi, who's here with us today, to you, Ibu Siregaard, and Dr. Dase, as well as Dr. Kaswanto, who we owe many thanks to as we were first initiating this collaboration on urban forestry, as well as Professor Iskandar and the entire team at the International Collaboration Office at IPB. So many thanks so much for inviting us to do this MOU signing and to kick off this collaboration and talk a little bit about the U.S. Forest Service mission of multiple use forest management. So in way of introduction for those of our colleagues and distinguished guests who maybe are not as familiar with the U.S. Forest Service, we are one of several public land management agencies in the United States. We manage 154 national forests and 20 national grasslands, equating roughly 78 million hectares of land across the United States. Because of the topographical diversity of the US, this 78 million hectares includes a variety of landscapes, notably forests, grasslands, rangelands, watersheds, deserts, and wilderness areas, as well as recreation areas. All of these areas are managed for multiple uses, including water, recreation, timber, wildlife, and biodiversity protection. Our motto at the United States Forest Service is caring for the land and serving the people, meaning that our goal as an agency is to ensure that our national forests and landscapes are managed in ecologically suitable manner for present and future generations of Americans, which I think is really at the heart of the talk that we are discussing with our colleagues at IPB today, the complexity of doing so, of managing for multiple use. So our national forests were originally envisioned as working forests with multiple objectives to improve and protect forests, to secure favorable watershed conditions, and to furnish a continuous supply of timber for the use of citizens of the United States. These forest management objectives have really expanded since the founding of the U.S. Forest Service in 1905 and evolved to include ecological restoration and protection, research and product development, fire hazard reduction, and the maintenance of healthy forests. We're very fortunate to be joined by a former Associate Chief of the Forest Service, our colleague Hank Caston, who will discuss a little bit more after I'm finished speaking a little bit about this evolution that's occurred over the course of United States Forest Service history. And I just wanted to note that we're very fortunate as Hank has taken a very active role in our collaborations in Indonesia with the Ministry of Environment and Forestry. So very pleased to have him with us today. So as you can kind of see, these are the 35,000 person workforce that's referenced on that slide. We've got some individuals on the left here working on fire and investigation. And then on the right-hand side, our colleagues from Law Enforcement and Investigations Division at U.S. Forest Service, working with our colleagues in Cambodia. And I'll talk a little bit more about our international programs in a bit. I did want to highlight the focus that U.S. Forest Service also has on research and development, as I think that really is a good dovetail to the partnership that we're forming here today with IPB University. And our research and development arm is a very important part of how the U.S. Forest Service approaches land management. So this division really underpins U.S. Forest Service science-based approach to land management, which is a key principle of how U.S. Forest Service operates, and also creates a lot of linkages to universities both domestically in the United States as well as through our Office of International Programs, building relationships with equally science-minded and cutting-edge universities such as IPB University as we continue to seek to serve our mission of applying knowledge globally. So I just wanted to highlight that that is a very important part of a mission and really central to why I think that this collaboration with IPB University is so central to the work of both of our institutions. We can go ahead and maybe move to the next slide and I can kind of discuss our, as I mentioned, sort of our evolution here in terms of fire hazard reduction. U.S. Forest Service firefighting is a large component of what we do. I think this is another commonality between forest management in the United States and Indonesia, as we both struggle with the combating climate change and the exacerbation that causes on fire conditions in both of our countries. And then a reference to our law enforcement and investigations personnel on the right hand too, which also is relevant to the collaboration that we'll be forming with IPB University in terms of the work that we could do around forest governance and law enforcement in protected areas, as well as wood identification, as my colleague Kent mentioned earlier. And so to talk a little bit about the work that we've been so privileged to be engaged on in Indonesia, as my colleague Kent referenced earlier, we've had partnerships on and off with the Ministry of Environment and Forestry, as well as other esteemed government of Indonesia agencies, as well as institutions in Indonesia, such as IPB University. We've been incredibly privileged to have a longer-term partnership with KLHK on forest planning and strategic planning and budgeting for effective forest management. These photos here are from a high-level visit of our colleagues from KLHK, namely the DG of Conservation and the DG of Sustainable Forest Management, as well as our colleagues at BP2 SDM that were able to come to the United States and participate in a technical exchange on sustainable forest management. As I mentioned, our programs in direct collaborations with KLHK have mostly been focused on forest planning, and we've been privileged to work at all levels of the Indonesian government, including at more of the local level, specifically in Aceh province, working with KPHs to develop their long-term forest plans as well as their short-term forest plans. And these are some of our colleagues out in the field with our colleagues from KPH Lima in just outside of the Blankedran area. And it was a real privilege for our U.S. forest experts to witness pine forests in Indonesia, something that I don't think they ever thought they would see. The goal of the U.S. Forest Service Office of International Programs and our work in host country partner governments such as Indonesia is, as I mentioned, to apply knowledge globally. We see science-based land management as a global effort, and the issues that face, the complexity of the issues that face all of us now as global land managers, such as climate change, zoonotic disease, outbreak caused by habitat fragmentation and forest degradation. We see these as things where technical cooperation across country lines is absolutely key. And I'll let my colleague Hank Cashin speak to sort of how that mission evolved over time. So we feel very fortunate to have had the cooperation that we've had during our time in Indonesia. And I feel very fortunate to also be working with our colleagues across Central Asia and formerly Sri Lanka to work with our host country counterparts there as well. So with that, I'll go ahead and close and pass it back to you, Ibu Siregar. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That was really a highlight what has been done between Indonesia and US USDA Forest Service. And without further ado, I will continue to Mr. Hang here. Mr. Hang is a former chief associate, former associate chief of USFS and has served 37 years of public service. Wow. Yeah. So Hang has already been in Indonesia since 2017. Worked with KLHK, yeah, promoting multiple use of forest management concept. So I would let the time for you, Hank, to give us what do you call it, kind of to hear your experience with Indonesia. It must be very interesting for us. Please, yeah, time is yours.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I've retired after 37 years of experience in the Forest Service. I started as a surveyor in northern Arizona and just moved up through the ranks, moved around the country and saw a great deal of the United States as I pursued my Forest Service career. It's probably one of the, I consider myself to be one of the most fortunate people in the world to have been able to work in the Forest Service and to perform that mission. And it's been a real honor actually since 2016, in fact, when I started my engagement in Indonesia. And I have really come to love working in the international program and have just a great affection for the country of Indonesia and the challenges that you have. I was really pleased when I was contacted about talking today about the IPB agreement, and I really appreciated Kent's remarks about urban forestry, because I did have opportunities as the associate chief to participate in Forest Service funded projects in downtown New York City and Atlanta, and saw how these projects directly affected and built engagement among young people. So this partnership of the university and urban forestry, I think, is one of the ways that we're enhancing future leadership and awareness of conservation and this whole multiple use concept. So let me talk about multiple use. Yoga, if you could move forward one. And I want to do that by first contrasting the missions of really two very high-profile agencies in the United States. Obviously, the Forest Service, and then the Park Service. And if you look at the mission statements, you'll see they're very different, but also very similar. The mission of the Forest Service involves use of the land and addressing both ecosystem health and the need for forest products, commodities, employment. And that is the multiple use concept, and it's to do this sustainably for present and future generations, as you see in that mission of the Forest Service. But also look at the Park Service. They also have the words "this" and "future generations," but their mission is distinctly preservation. And in my mind, that makes the mission somewhat less complex because the objective is to preserve what exists now unimpaired in natural and cultural resources for enjoyment, education, and inspiration. These are two very different missions, and from what I have learned in working with Indonesia, the multiple use side is clearly posing the most significant challenges. And in the protected areas of Indonesia, there seems to be somewhere in between where the human interface is a very important aspect from a livelihood and economic standpoint. So let's move forward a little bit on the next slide. And let me throw out a similar slide to what Stephanie talked about, but this shows all of the public lands in the United States administered not only by the Forest Service, but if you look at the green and then the darker brown, these are the lands that are administered by the Forest Service and the Bureau of Land Management. Both agencies have a very specific, almost identical multiple use mission statement, but the Bureau of Land Management tends to be open territory, rangeland, much less of a forested environment. And then you have the blue, the light blue, which is the National Park Service. And that is that preservation mission that I talked about. So moving forward a little bit, let me just now focus on the U.S. Forest Service and how multiple use evolved and how it's administered today. Now, the United States was basically formed in 1789 when the original 13 colonies joined together and formed the United States. And really from 1789 to the early 1900s, right around 1900, the natural use management could basically be described as exploitation. Now, it wasn't deliberate, if you will, or I don't say it in a corrupt sense. or unethical sense. It was a matter of during those early years, the country is young, the population was small, the resources were endless, and there was really no thinking that these resources might ultimately run out if they were not managed. So Yoga, go ahead to the next one. Here's some pictures, and I think they illustrate what the United States was experiencing. Go ahead and click to the next one, Yoga. This is what the United States was experiencing early in its formation that many countries today are experiencing now, and hopefully the lessons we've learned that we can talk about are proving inspirational to developing a further conservation awareness. Go ahead and go to the next one, Yoga. The awareness of this exploitation really became known, started to become known right around 1900, and there were three key players that I want to mention that brought this awareness to the forefront. First of all, the President of the United States, Teddy Roosevelt, was an avid outdoorsman. He traveled the world. He hiked, he hunted, he had the outdoors a core element of his soul. And so he was there in 1900 when two other voices started emerging. One was John Muir, and John Muir's philosophies of preservation, the fear of losing these resources permanently, were really recognized by Teddy Roosevelt, and those views were part of the formation of the Park Service mission for preservation. But in our case, the other person is Gifford Pinchot, the first chief of the Forest Service. He was the chief from 1905 to 1910, but he was very well known in trying to raise conservation awareness, and in essence, really fathered the multiple use mission of the Forest Service. And here's a couple of examples of his viewpoint. I'll go to the second one first. Where conflicting interests must be reconciled, the question shall always be answered from the standpoint of the greatest good of the greatest number in the long run. And all based on the first belief that without abundant resources forever, prosperity will be out of reach. Now, the greatest good of the greatest number in the long run and how that forms multiple use management is one of the core values of every employee and practically every retiree in the Forest Service. And I might just, as an example of that, just show, I have this card, I've had it in my wallet, I carry it in my wallet. It's the mission statement of the Forest Service, and I've been retired for 11 years and hasn't left my wallet yet, and I'm sure it will be with me till the day I die. And it is essentially the principle of multiple use management, that is to sustain the health, diversity, and productivity of the nation's forest and grasslands to meet the needs of present and future generations. That is the foundation from Gifford Pinchot, and this is where the whole multiple use concept came from, the greatest good of the greatest number in the long run. Okay, next slide. So multiple use management is very easy to say, but it's also very tough to manage, and it's very tough to administer, and it's very tough to deliver across the landscape. And I think that the examples I'll give you here, I think, are very consistent with much of what is faced in Indonesia and throughout countries around the world. Multiple use management is basically managing those natural resources. Some examples: clean water, forests, wildlife, fisheries, soil, carbon, forage, air, managing those to meet the human needs, homes, hunting, whether for subsistence or for sport, employment, healthy lifestyle, healthy environment, recreational pursuits, and food. And to achieve the balance between these two, you really need these components of making it all work. Good forest planning, active community involvement as much as possible, effective communication, always, repetitively, consistently, good science, monitoring your work, monitoring the treatments on the ground, good solid leadership around that multiple use mission, and accountability for results. And what I want to do here is talk about two examples. I said it's easy to say, tough to make it work. Let me talk about one example where it was very successful, and then another where the Forest Service really hasn't been able to manage the multiple use on its own. So let's go to the next slide, and I'll talk about the success first. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me also talk, first off, in preparing for this presentation, I wanted to find various definitions of multiple use management. And honestly, I never knew this existed until preparing for this presentation. And here is the Attorney General's view of multiple use management. And it serves as the basis for legal action and litigation. So here it is, the Department of Justice view of multiple use, very consistent with what the Forest Service said. And I highlighted the part of multiple use management is about emphasizing a balance in land use planning among competing values of recreation, grazing, timber, watershed, wildlife, fish, and wilderness. And the effort to achieve that balance thus leads to the statement that these are not parks because this mission is not about preservation. And so that they further go on to talk about the challenge. For example, timber and grazing uses of these lands have resulted not only in expectation by ranchers and the timber industry that these uses will continue unabated forever, but that leads to the conflict. There may be a conflict within neighboring communities between economic value of consumptive and recreational uses and preservation values. As can be expected, the use allocations made by the agencies don't often sit well with one or the other of these constituents. So now let me go to those two examples. Next slide. Here's what I think is just a classic success story built on multiple use management. And I know Pak Yoga was actually part of this, visited this as part of one of our study tours in the United States. This is the Coconino National Forest in Arizona, where the circle is. It's right up near the Grand Canyon. And the reason we had some very successful multiple use, and still to this day have it going on, is that communities were threatened by catastrophic wildfire. The very survivability of the communities was in danger because of poor forest health. That led to a broad community understanding across personal benefit, values, beliefs, and political viewpoints. Everyone realized their communities were at risk, and you couldn't have a better situation for then talking about how are you going to take care of the land. And I want to pose some questions to you at the end of this that I think come right back to that point. So what's being achieved today in northern Arizona is protection from wildfire, a continued community dialogue about future treatments about the environment, and we're achieving multiple use across many ownerships: private land, city land, county land, state land. And what makes it so remarkable is that the city of Flagstaff, just to show the level of success that this achieved, the level of understanding, voted in favor of a $10 million bond issue to fund additional land treatments. Now, by my calculation, $10 million is 14.4 billion rupiah. And this was a tax burden that the county in which Flagstaff is formed is a population of only 143,000 people. So it was really a remarkable statement about a level of understanding about how you can work together to sustainably manage for the longest term, the greatest good. Empowered dialogue, trust, community awareness, government support, resources, and partnership were all success components. Now let's move to the next one. And I wanted to highlight this because this is an ecosystem in Southeast Alaska. This is the Tongass National Forest, and this is an area where the Forest Service struggled and continues to struggle today to employ good, sound, multiple use principles. And another thing about this ecosystem in Southeast Alaska is actually, I think it's other than the latitude and the temperature differences, the ecosystems are very similar to what I've seen in Indonesia. Maritime influenced, rain influenced, and a lack of dependency on fire for forest health activities. And also the fact that on the Tongass, the exploitation of resources occurred much later than in the mainland United States, and really was in the mid-1900s. So as the environmental movement arose, a great deal of attention came to the Tongass National Forest and the logging of old growth. And in 1994, President Bill Clinton unilaterally canceled two 50-year timber sale contracts that were not meeting any of the land management objectives that were in effect during that day. In other words, really not harvesting sustainably. Well, in 2020, President Donald Trump reauthorized the old growth logging and authorized contracts to be issued back on the Tongass. Well, here in 2021, President Joseph Biden has reinstated the old growth ban. Now, all of this is while the Forest Service is providing advice, science, information, and the best they could do is inform the political process, but couldn't really influence the decision making. And why was that? Well, because this was the core of the battle between timber and environmentalists. It had national attention, powerful special interests, powerful legislators in the United States Congress, both Senate and Congress that supported logging. No consistent threat to local communities. No communities were in danger from this. And there was a lack of diverse opinions in the local area versus strong national interest. So there's one that was a lot tougher to administer. So those are two examples of multiple use, both success and failure. And I think with that, I can kind of close with a couple of questions for all of you. And that is to look at the Indonesia situation from a sustainable multiple use management standpoint, and see how your challenges can be addressed here. And some of the questions that come up to me that I think are very worth discussing in the environment and in the universities and in the schools and with communities, or something along this is how can conservation awareness be increased, especially among the younger generations that are going to be future leaders? I think urban forestry is a good example of that. Are there urban programs that can raise this awareness in urban settings, which are increasing in size in the United States and everywhere, and reducing the understanding from a personal standpoint about living in rural areas? Are there some of those unifying threats like catastrophic fire that can bring communities together? Water quality comes to mind, insect and disease threats, certainly fire in some areas, recreation challenges. Are there opportunities for partnerships between business and multiple use interests? We've had tremendous successes with previously extractive businesses contributing to forest health success, and there's multiple examples of that. And then are there greater opportunities for the colleges and universities to raise that multiple use conservation awareness that is so important for the future? So with that, I'm going to close again, thank you for allowing me to continue to be involved in your programs in Indonesia, and the congratulations I want to make for executing this new agreement. And I wish you the continued success and look forward to hearing all about it in the future. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Hank. And wow, that's very honest and inspiring talk from both Stephanie and Hank. I think all my friends maybe have never, it was never occurred in our mind that you also face difficulties. Sometimes it failure or something, face a failure or something like that. Maybe all of us maybe think that usually developed country, Western country usually will succeed in everything, but apparently not really. So that would open for a discussion, and we have 30 minutes for discussion. So I hope it's enough time. I don't think it's enough. I mean, it's short, but we have to understand that our colleagues from United States now is in the middle of the night. So yeah, we need to what do you call it? Restrict the time. So I would like to invite from the floor anybody who would like to ask some questions to either Stephanie or Hank. You can raise hand. Yeah, Amelia Ulfa. Yeah, please. You can start.
Thank you, Miss, for your participation. Thank you for everyone that attend to this seminar. This talk is really interesting, and I think that I gain a lot of knowledge from this seminar. I would like to ask a question to Mr. Hang. That it's really interesting topic. The first question is that as we see that the part of our natural resource has been extinct, that the wild the wild animals and also other commodities, to see this problem as a young generation, what is the exact thing that we have to do? We know that very basic solution that we know, but as a person, I don't really understand about how to implement those actions to do protect our natural resource, like you explained before, how to engage more communities to be involved in that part. Thank you.
Thank you for the questions. Maybe Pak Iskandar, I saw you raise your hands.
Yeah. Thank you, Ibu Ulfa. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Pak Hang. Yeah, a short presentation, but very insightful, I think, from both of you, summarizing a very, very long history of the U.S. Forestry U.S. Forest Management, I think. My question when you to Hang, when you're talking about the managing multi-purpose or multi-use, not easy, and you put some I think different kind of aspect to be considered. So my question, how do you link this field experience from forest management to the forest education in US? I mean, train the young forester, for example, graduating from the university, in the, let's say, curriculum development, modernizing the curricula as well, so they can fit to the present and the future challenges. That's all, Bu Ulfa. Very interesting.
Okay, thank you. And the last, maybe for this session, for the last, maybe later if there is another time, I can give a chance for another question from Ibu Umi Zakia. She's from East Java.
Okay.
Another university, my sister. So please,
Thank you very much, Uni, for the time, and to Stephanie and Hank. Basically, I have looked at the USDA website and do a little bit browsing inside it, and that really impressed me on how wide and deep and so many things. It seems like this agency do so many things for the government in terms of forest management. However, since I'm Umi Zakia from Malang, Brawijaya University, and I work at the Department of Aquatic Resources Management, Faculty of Fisheries and Marine Science. So I will little bit relate this forest in definition with mangrove forest. Yeah, you know that in our country, this forest is still debatable whether it's under the Ministry of Forestry or Ministry of Fisheries, because it seems like this forest, what you call it, state that there are related terms for both sides, Department of Ministry of Forestry and Ministry of Fisheries, but I could not find it in the USDA work. So how is it managed in United States for this type of forest? I mean, like forest that in a coastal area. So I was interested in that, and who is responsible for the management? Its management. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you for all the questions. And I would give chance for Stephanie and Hanks to answer, give us some enlightenment for that. Who is going to come first, Stephanie or Hank?
You want me to, Stephanie, you want me to say a few things?
Yeah, feel free to go first, and I can follow up on some of the other questions.
Yeah.
Well, I had four thoughts or four areas to respond to based on this series of questions you asked. I think one aspect of there was a topic of what are the strategies for engaging young people? You know, the Forest Service, although it's not a great deal of funding, does have a program with specific efforts around conservation education, and at the core of that is using icons like Smokey Bear as an example, and there's an expectation that all the national forests through this conservation education program engage themselves in local schools, from elementary schools to high schools to colleges. At the university, the research program is integrally related to the university system, and a great deal of our summer employment focuses on interns at the college level that enhances bringing young people into the picture, but also that urban forestry program, again, because urban areas are increasing in size and population, rural areas are declining in the United States, and I think that's consistent in great many areas of the world. The ability to lose sight of how important the natural resources are it's very easy to lose that. And so programs like urban forestry, where you put the Forest Service symbol right there, and like in Central Park, where young people are being trained as interns through Forest Service grants, tree companies are hiring these young people to take care of the forest in Central Park, and getting an appreciation of the environment. I've seen the same thing in Atlanta, and in fact, there's a right near my hometown of Charlotte, North Carolina. There's a very extensive urban forestry program that has a very small grant from Forest Service and otherwise a great deal of other contributors. And so I think the link to communities is both program oriented through a conservation education program, specific urban forestry and the responsibility of every national forest to have some interface with the local communities and schools in that area to inspire young people. Now, on the coastal forest management, it's kind of a whole different area. And, you know, it's not as easy. You mentioned the conflict, the disagreement between the Marine Ministry and the Ministry of Environment and Forestry. Look, we have the same conflicts. When it comes to coastal, there's where national forest land touches the coast, the habitat responsibility is very clearly Forest Service, but otherwise there's agencies like Fish and Wildlife Service that set nationwide standards, National Marine Fisheries Service that sets standards for anadromous fish and waterfowl or birds that rely on the forest as well as maritime. And there's several other areas where agencies struggle to work out who is in charge of what, but the basic responsibility seems to come down to, with the Forest Service, they manage habitat and they do it in accordance with the agencies that manage the wildlife population, be that marine or interior, and it's quite a cooperative effort. It's not easy. I don't know if I left anything out of those questions.
Yeah, so it might be managed by more than just probably agency or something like that.
Correct. Yeah, and it requires a great deal of interagency cooperation.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Maybe one more question, Pak Iskandar question, how do you translate the policy into our curriculums in the university or in the even elementary school and so on?
Well, again, I think the responsibility is both with the government agencies that administer the land that is close to those schools to try and raise awareness, but I think it's also a responsibility of every school system to make sure that there is some part of the curriculum, in addition to math and English and reading, that is around environmental issues. And unfortunately, there are many urban schools that don't teach this at all. And so that's where it's really difficult to make an impact. And I think things like this agreement, where you involve universities and young people, where you have programs that reach out to junior high and high school kids in urban settings, is really important. I actually, in 2017, I participated in Jakarta in a discussion of wildlife trafficking. I just happened to be there on one of my trips, and the embassy said, well, look, once you go on the panel and talk about wildlife trafficking from a Forest Service standpoint. And I found this was junior high school kids, and they were so fascinated by the whole issue and clearly hadn't been touched by it before. And so programs like that, I think, are very important to make happen.
Okay. Thank you, Hanks.
These are the future leaders, the young people. So
yeah, I agree. Okay, thank you very much, Hank. Somebody, do you have some more to add to that?
Yeah, thank you so much, Ibu Ulfa. I think, Hank has covered it very well. So we can maybe, rather than putting my 2 cents in, if there are additional questions, would be happy to take maybe some more questions in our last few minutes here together.
Okay, thank you. So with that, I would like to invite a second chance for participants here to ask questions. Yeah, Pak Ali Suhardiman. Yeah. And then followed by Pak Yoga. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Ibu Ulfa. My name is Ali Suhardiman from Faculty of Forestry, University of Mula Warman. in East Kalimantan.
Wow.
Thank you for having me in this good forum. So I like to address about the issue of urban forest that Henk has done mentioned several times. So as we might know that Indonesian government has decided to move its capital from Jakarta to East Kalimantan, a forest land, we can say it forest land. And the proposed concept that people say about this new capital is forest city, Mr. Heng. Some terminology that maybe we are not really understand about this concept. Maybe people said that 50% we should cap the forest and then we build some infrastructure. But the concept is still discussed and maybe more debate if we discuss further about this. So in this opportunity, I would like to have some idea, opinion, maybe from both of you about the situation in United States. Maybe there's some lesson learned that we can get from the development of the city in the US that combine between the conservation interest, development interest, and also social interest that make it maybe our government can learn about this example in other situation in other countries. This is my question, Ibu Ulfa. Thank you very much.
Okay, next is from Pak Yoga, and then I will read one question from the chat box. Yeah, please, Pak Yoga.
Thank you so much, Ibu Ulfa, for the time. First of all, I would like to thank all of the presenters to giving very good presentations, and then all the committees and also the professors. Secondly, I'm sorry that I cannot show the camera because the camera is now broken, so I cannot show.
It's okay.
However, regarding to the presentations, I would like to know about the best strategy implemented by the U.S. government, especially the USFS, to better engage the stakeholders. Because as far as I know, that the USFS have very good implementations, especially in engaging the stakeholders, all of the stakeholders that relates to the government institutions, the civil society organizations, the private sectors, and so on. So nowadays, the DG SFM, or the Directorate General of Sustainable Forest Management, the Indonesian Ministry of Environment and Forestry, also having a further policy which related to the multiple use of forests. So I would like to know like the best strategy that already communicated or implemented by the USFS to engage more stakeholders, especially to raise their awarenesses and also the participations of all multi-stakeholders. Thank you, Mr. Hank and Stephanie. Thank you, Ibu Ulfa.
Thank you. Thank you. So for the last question, maybe I will read from the chat box. I don't know if this is Miss or Mr. Wilhelmus Mela asking, would you please put multiple use management of forest service in the perspective of watershed management, especially when this watershed is cross country boundary or something like that, cross some boundary of, for example, across some kabupaten or district, or across even countries like maybe Malaysia, Indonesia, or something like that. So that's the last question. I would like to give a chance for Stephanie or Heng again to answer these questions.
Hank, you want to take the lead again, or do you, do you want me to?
These are really, really good questions. Let me take the second one first, but how to be successful in engaging stakeholders is something that is part of every supervisor, line officer, training and development, and it's part of, in order to be a national forest supervisor or even a national forest district ranger, it's these people who successfully compete for these jobs and get them have demonstrated, and this is the new Forest Service, the Forest Service of today, have demonstrated their ability to engage stakeholders, because if they haven't developed partnerships, and partnerships is that engagement, if they haven't been successful at engaging partnerships, they're not successful at multiple use management. And that Arizona example, that's an example of one on the Coconino National Forest in Flagstaff, Arizona. Part of the reason for the success is that the Forest Service asked for help, communities asked for help, and as part of that asking for help, came to the table looking jointly for solutions. In other words, when you engage stakeholders, you don't do it with the idea of saying, hey, I've got 5 choices here. What are you in favor of? No, you engage stakeholders by making them part of identifying what the choices are, and then working together to see how you can develop consensus among the different people who are participating in this stakeholder event. And the Forest Service is merely a partner and facilitator, and ultimately the implementer of the decisions are made in this process. And that's the foundation of successful partnership, stakeholder engagement, and it's a core element of all forest planning in the national forest, is that engagement. So how do you do it? You do it with sincerity. You do it as a full partner. You do it as an empowering, as somebody who's empowering the local community to achieve consensus among their differing opinions. And those are things that lead to success. And you know, when you talk about, I had heard about moving the capital. It really made the news for me to Kalimantan. What can I say except that it's an ideal opportunity to integrate the environment into the capital complex, the capital planning, and to really make an integrated multiple use management process in laying out a whole new environment. And there's been successes there. You know, in Alaska, the capital of Alaska is Juneau. One might think it's Anchorage, and it was actually put in Juneau for the purpose of development, and probably at the time it was done was to further exploit the forest. But today, now you've got a capital that is completely not accessible by car. You can't drive to Juneau unless you take a ferry in Alaska. And there's some other examples like that internationally. I know the capital of Brazil was put into the Amazon, probably not for good reasons other than to just develop the Amazon. But so I think that moving the capital to Kalimantan is an incredible opportunity. And the question is, will Indonesia be able to rise to the occasion to integrate the environment into that movement at the time that they're planning it? And then multiple use and watershed across international boundaries, or we face that issue across state boundaries. And occasionally we have some issues with wildlife between Mexico and the United States, and a lot of timber aspects in Canada. And once again, it comes down to good committed dialogue and engagement, much the way you engage stakeholders.
Okay, thank you very much, Hanks. Do you have something to add to that, Stephanie? Or
Sure, I can just add a couple small points sort of in order here, starting with Pak Ali's question regarding the opportunity. And I would agree with my colleague Hank that the opportunity in terms of moving the capital to East Kalimantan, it is, just as Hank says, a real opportunity to integrate the environment into urban planning. And that's where, again, I think constituencies and institutions like IPB's Department of Landscape Services are going to play a huge role in terms of civil society, in terms of making contributions to how the government of Indonesia can go about doing that in the most sustainable way. And I would just say that we in the United States are just sort of getting to the point where we're trying to be more strategic. One of the initiatives in our urban forestry program in the Office of International Programs at Forest Service has been around a tool called iTree, which is really a suite of tools that helps evaluate ecosystem services of different trees in urban areas. And so the use of these kinds of tools, technologies, and also, again, back to that science-based decision-making as you go about infrastructure development and looking at what the current environment is in East Kalimantan are going to be so key to making sure that the new capital is, set up for a long, prosperous future as well. And I would agree that it is an opportunity. And then on Yoga's question regarding the strategy around stakeholder engagement, again, I would agree with Hank that it really is about an approach, a mission, and a professionalism of the people that you have on the front line of doing that stakeholder engagement. But I'd also just say that there's, a policy enabling environment as well. And as Hank indicated when he said that it's sort of built into our forest planning processes, the National Environment Policy Act, or the NEPA process, as we call it, has a lot of public consultation built into that process. That is proven to be really key in ensuring that the U.S. government is legally mandated to consult the public and to give a forum for different civil society, NGO, community resource managers to have a forum to air differing opinions, even grievances, as the U.S. Forest Service makes decisions around land management. And then briefly, just sort of on the watershed management piece, again, agree it's a very complicated topic, and for managing for multiple use, I think some of the most distinctive examples we've seen in the U.S. Forest Service in terms of multiple use is the idea to manage for water quality and water quantity, and the different constituencies and stakeholders who are involved in that process. So the U.S. Forest Service has what are called these watershed investment partnerships, where we work with different public utilities to share stewardship and responsibility of water resources, as well as provide financial resources, as the U.S. Forest Service is not always funding all of these projects independently, but working with utilities who have a vested interest to provide clean, high quality water to the population that they're serving in their local area, to work alongside those different stakeholders where there's a mutual interest present to be able to ensure that the American people are getting the best quality of water and the quantity that is needed as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. So I think the time for discussion is finished, and I think we can learn a lot, from USDA Forest Service. What we can learn, I think, is that we have similar problem and similar approach. About stakeholder engagement and everything what Hank and Stephanie mentioned. Actually, it's not really new in Indonesia. We always use that kind of concept also here. Maybe the only problem is sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. They're similar. Now we learn that in the US also, sometimes it works, sometimes similar. So if it works, then we Muslim will say Alhamdulillah. But if it doesn't work, then we will try to, what do you call it, smuggle our ways, how to try different approach or something like that. I think that similar. There are a lot of similarity between Indonesia and US. And about the urban youth, I will tell my experience in 2019, before the COVID. I mentioned this morning, I went to Plant and Animal Genome in San Diego, conference in San Diego. And at that time, I attended one session, and then I was so surprised because the presentators of that session is a high school teacher from New York, and I forgot from another one. And they are trying to identify biodiversity in near the high school using, according to me at that time, most advanced method using DNA barcoding. And immediately after I heard that, I called Pak Iskandar, Professor Iskandar. You know what? I said, in Indonesia, DNA barcoding is still worked by undergraduate students. But in US, you know, high school students already use that method. I said, we need to start. We need to start this kind of, you know, urban, like what Heng mentioned, urban championship or whatever, conservation championship or in high school, even below. So yesterday, I and Pak Iskandar talk about how to start raise awareness and this about this urban youth or something like that, yeah, in Indonesia to make awareness as early as possible in younger kids or something like that. So I was so surprised because the presenter is a senior high school teacher, and they just like using the most advanced method and from high school students, something like that. I was so impressed. So with that, I would like to close this discussion and thank you very much for Stephanie, Heng, and also Ken for giving us an insight and inspiration on how to work our way towards multiple use of forest management. In our Department of Silviculture, IPB, actually, we also think about it, but maybe we think because it's Department of Silviculture, so it's multiple use, multiple silviculture system, multiple silviculture system, not yet the multiple use or something like that. But maybe we can work together with the other department in our Faculty of Forestry and Environment, for example, conservation, the department conservation and management, and I don't know toward this goal. So thank you very much for Stephanie, Heng, and Ken. And I will give back the time to our MC, Rizky. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Ulfa Siregar, for leading the webinar very smoothly. And also thank you for all the speaker, Dr. Mann and also Dr. Hank Ashton. Thank you very much for your time. We do learn a lot. And also thank you very much for the enthusiasm of all the webinar attendees. And lastly, we'd like to announce that we will send a little merchandise or gift to all the attendees that asked question before. But Haritya Yoga from USFS will contact you soon to confirm your address. Leslie, on behalf of the committee, I'd like to convey apologizes for any shortcomings during the process of the webinar. Thank you very much for joining us today. Stay healthy and have a good rest of the day. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
All.
Terima kasih.
Thank you very much for all
Sama-sama.
presenters.
All
very
Pak
much.
Iskandar.
Especially
Bye.
USFS. See you again
Yo,
soon.
terima kasih.
Terima kasih Ibu Stephanie. Terima kasih Pak
Kamsahamnida,
Heng.
Uli.
Makasih.
Terima
Terima
kasih.
kasih Pak
Masih Pak
Kas,
Dodi. Masih Pak Is.
Sama-sama, Bu.
Terima kasih Pak Ken.
Pak Yoga. Wih, 100 peserta Pak. Saya stop dulu.
Terima
Pak
kasih.
Yoga ada 2, euy.
Oh iya Pak Yoga. Thank you Stephanie.
Ya, terima kasih
Makasih, Pak
banyak Dr.
Dase.
Dase.
Prof. Is.
Terima kasih Bu Stephanie. Kapan ke Indonesia Bu Stephanie?
Oh, sebentar lagi saya
Mohon
harap.
izin
Ya,
leave.
terima kasih banyak Pak Kaswanto. Ya, mudah-mudahan mungkin di bulan Maret, mungkin.
Oh, bagus.
Ya, mudah-mudahan. Good night. Thank you.
Iya.
Bye.
Bye. See you.
Terima kasih.
On izin leave Uni. Semuanya.
Terima kasih Bu Ulfa.
Sama-sama.
kasih, Bu
Sama-sama.
Ulfa.
Sama-sama Pak Kaswanto.
Sehat
Sama-sama.
selalu Bu Ulfa.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
Saya kalau lihat Pak Kaswanto